Unlock your mind and see our distorted reality. You know that we're not functioning based upon reality when the group that has literally been the most immoral throughout history are now perceived as the moral authorities. We also get our morals from a Bible written by those same immoral people. None of this makes any sense. It's also psychologically logical to love our enemies, yet millions of our people does so while hitting our own people. Clearly, something has been done to our collective minds through our enemies' monopoly over information that we receive. Because they control the information that we receive, this allows them to control what we believe. They've exploited this immense power over us by feeding us disinformation that makes us think in ways that are against our own interests and that serves the interests of their white society. Sadly, far too many of our people have normalized the fact that our minds have been turned upside down. Unlock your mind. Your mind is trapped by false beliefs, embedded into it by white oppressive forces. Those false beliefs distort your perception of reality in ways that serve the system of white supremacy. Beliefs are very powerful, and a belief held long enough becomes your reality, even when the belief is false. People function based upon their beliefs rather than reality, and people's beliefs are shaped by the information that they receive. All societies function based upon the information that are fed into the society. The white society therefore exploits their monopoly over information that's fed into our society by feeding falsehoods into the society that makes society function in ways that serve the system of white supremacy. It's a true social science. Here's an example of how we're functioning based upon false narratives that creates false beliefs within us that benefits the system of white supremacy. Every time you turn on a light switch, you're functioning based upon the perception that's embedded within your subconscious mind that you should be thankful to the genius mind of a white person that you have that light bulb. This is because the white society miseducates us to believe that Thomas Edison is responsible for lighting up the world. The hidden reality is that after Edison patented his light bulb, no companies purchased it nor mass produced it, none. This is because it was deemed not efficient enough. It lit very dimly and often lasts only a few minutes. The inventor whose light bulb was purchased, mass produced, and spread around the world was actually invented by an African American named Lewis Latimer. He sold a patent to the U.S. Electric Company in 1881. He was also dispatched around the world to oversee its installation. Therefore, in reality, it was actually a black man that lit up the entire world. Every time we get into our car, we are functioning based upon the perception that's embedded within our subconscious mind that we should be thankful to the genius mind of a white person that in fact we're able to drive cars. This is because the white society also miseducates us to believe that Henry Ford invented the first automobile. It was actually an African American inventor and carriage company entrepreneur named Charles Richard Patterson that built the first automobile. The C.R. Patterson and Sons Company, it started out as a carriage building firm in 1873. In the early 1900s, Patterson and his sons converted the company from a carriage business into an automobile manufacturer. It was released in 1905 and sold for $850. It had a 4-cylinder Continental engine. C.R. Patterson began making automobiles before Henry Ford, and his automobiles was considered more sophisticated than Henry Ford. C.R. Patterson and his sons were forced out of business by Henry Ford. In 1939, the company closed its big wooden doors for good. Most people don't know this fact. Also, most people are clueless of the fact that every time you're using a GPS, they should be thanking an African-American woman named Gladys Mae West. People don't know this. The world doesn't function based upon these noted facts. The world instead functions based upon white exalting lies that gives Caucasians credit for most inventions actually made by black people, while making black people appear as being the leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history. Creating this societal perception is necessary in order to sustain false assumptions within the society that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. However, the hidden reality is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustice of white racism and slavery, most inventions that revolutionized the world were in fact either invented by a black person, by black people, or was inspired by early inventions by black people. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones, no emails, no GPS, no motorized vehicles, no helicopters, no traffic lights, no 3D movies, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers, no home security surveillance system, no home game cartridges, no air conditioning, no central heating, no refrigerator, no refrigerated trucks, no washing machine, no dryers, no lawnmowers, no blood bank. We wouldn't even have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have fiber optics, digital technology, etc., etc. People don't know these facts. Because our enemies control our narratives, they falsely negatively distort them in order to condition us to manipulate black people to perceive ourselves through a false inferior identity that aids them in maintaining their social dominance over us. They keep us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves to keep us looking up at themselves and feeling negative about ourselves. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception created by false white exalting and false black marginalizing information that have been fed into your mind. It's a perception management system that is designed to create and sustain false assumptions in a society that aids the white society in maintaining their social dominance over black people. This is our hidden reality. Perception management is a propaganda technique that it involves altering the public's perception of reality to suit the objective of the ruling class. It's an essential part of modern information warfare. Perception management systems are very effective because people's perceptions are not shaped based upon facts nor reality. They're actually shaped by the narratives that are repetitively fed into the society. Therefore, the basic tool required to distort the public perception of reality is to merely feed distorted narratives into society. The public at large will then begin functioning based upon the false narratives rather than the true reality. This is precisely what white oppressive forces have done, particularly white social scientists and white propagandists have done. They systematically feed false narratives into society that falsely exalt whites and falsely marginalize black people. And this creates a setting that aids in the maintaining of white supremacy. Through this nefarious social engineering process, the collective self-esteems of whites has been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-esteems of black people. It's also at the root of the false feelings of superiority that many whites possess, as well as the feelings of self-hatred and internalized feelings of self-contempt that many black people experience. The white society is falsely scripted. If you think that this disclosure sounds ridiculous, it's because you're not critically thinking. When critically thinking, it becomes quite clear how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is that virtually all information that we receive from white sources about black people are consistently negative or consistently favor themselves over us. Some things are so obviously ridiculous that's only by not critically thinking that it cannot be seen. That's not realistic. This unrealistic scenario exists as a result of the perception management system that's been put in place for maintaining white dominance over black people. Remember I said all societies function based upon a narrative that are fed into our society. So the white society feeds a narrative into our society that exalts whites and marginalizes black people, thus maintaining white social dominance over black people. This is the hidden reality. This is the social science that the white society used for maintaining this dominance over black people. Now, here's the hidden reason why this perception management system was implemented. After slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, in spite of not being given any reparation and in spite of the traumas of slavery and the ongoing cultural traumas of white racism, African Americans built many self-sufficient communities across the United States. These black communities were often were envied by the white neighbors because they rivaled those communities. All those towns have been subsequently demolished by white mobs due to racism and jealousy. Furthermore, between 1870 and 1940, African Americans submitted 726 invention patent applications to the U.S. Patent Office. Those numbers of inventions submitted by African Americans also more than doubled the number of patents submitted by whites during the same time period. These feats achieved by African Americans are extraordinary within such a short relative time following slavery, while being denied reparation, denied equality, denied a good education. And they did all this. White social scientists determined that if left unimpeded, black people could have eventually elapsed to white society's social dominance. It was therefore decided that it was necessary to put in place a perception management system that denigrates and marginalizes the image of black people. Through this nefarious perception management system, the white society has literally distorted the interpretation of reality. We are not functioning based upon reality. And through this perception management system, they have manipulated many black people to believe that we are incapable of building our own cities independent of whites, and manipulate millions of us to believe that we have not invented much throughout history. In fact, many African Americans graduate from their high school believing that the only thing that we've invented was peanut butter and super soaker. Peanut butter. Now, social scientists describe this as instilling a value system into the collective minds of black people that makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. It makes us adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. Programming us to think less of ourselves is how the white society maintains their social dominance over us. We have to start thinking for ourselves. We are walking around thinking without thinking, not realizing that the white society are controlling our thoughts, our narratives, controlling how we think. We must elevate our minds above a silly slave syndrome myth and a Willie Lynch and a biblical fairy tale written by the most ungodliest people we've ever encountered. Those things make no sense. We have been brainwashed to think in ways that are against our own interests. It's called ideological subversion. Ideological subversion is when the dominant culture exploits their monopoly over information that the subordinate population receive, and they constantly feed them disinformation that makes them think and behave in ways that are against their own interests and in ways that serve the dominant society. This is what's been done to us. We have to elevate our minds. If you continue to believe that a Bible written by our oppressors is going to save us, if you continue to believe that we're being controlled by slave syndrome, you're going to die mentally enslaved. And to die mentally enslaved means you've died having lived your entire life and your mind was never truly yours. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up. One love and peace.